Praise, all honor, and all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bashem Yahawashi. Right? All praises to the Most High. This brother Makwas coming back with a quick video touching on Passover through the Spirit. All right, it's gonna be a quick video. I know I'm at the workplace, so I'm on break, so it ain't gonna be too long. But just to touch on the quick and the basics of Passover. All right, Passover is right around the corner, April 21st at sundown, and around this time, it's important to get your spirit in alignment with the spirit of these feast days and these seasons, and with that Passover being one of the most glorified and one of the biggest feast days, right? Arguably the biggest feast day. Let's kick it off with Deuteronomy 16. All right, again, Passover is a very big and important feast day to observe. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 16. It says, 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, and the place which he shall choose, and the feast of unleavened bread. Right? What's the feast of unleavened bread? That's the week of Passover. All right, you got Passover, which is the feast of unleavened bread, the 14th day of sundown, and that leads on for 7 days through the Spirit. So you got the feast of unleavened bread. Right? It says, reading on, Salakia. I lost my spot. Right, the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, right, Pentecost, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Now, I don't got my apocrypha on me, but when you read Sirach 35 and verse 4 on down, the Lord commands us not to appear empty before him when it comes to spiritual offerings. So when you go into the spirit of the Passover, you see how it links up with the law, Exodus chapter 12 and 13. You linking it up with the plagues, and you get into the spiritual part of it, linking it up with the Lord, Yahawashi, etc. You're gonna come to find out it's one of the biggest high holy days through the Spirit. All right, let's go to the book of Matthew. Actually, let's go to Exodus chapter 12. Right, this is all through the Spirit, so bear with me. Right, this is the book of Exodus chapter 12, and I want to start at verse 1. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron and the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So when you go into the month of Bib on the Hebrew calendar, that's the first year of the month. Right? I mean, it's like that's the first month of the year. It's like that's the first month of the year. So when we go into it, that fell around during the times of late March into early April. Around that season will be the first year. So also you want to keep these feast days within the seasons. So this would be the season of Passover. That's why you see a lot of camps, even though it may not be on the exact same day, but around this time period, everyone's keeping the feast of Passover because the Lord commanded us to keep it in the seasons. It says, verse number 3, speak ye unto the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month, they shall take them every man lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the house be too little, I'm going to jump down. Right? Now it's going into the lamb. I'm going to jump to verse verse 8. Right? It says, and they shall eat the flesh, and that night roast with fire. So again, this is the milk going into the Passover. When you eat your lamb, the Lord commands the lamb to be roast. All right, grill it. The Lord's not dealing with you baking your lamb in the oven. All right, you eating baked lamb. No, the Lord, when you read Exodus 12, you want to follow these ordinances and these commandments to your best of your ability, specific as possible. Right? It says, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs shall you eat it. So the Passover, the Lord commanded us to eat it with bitter herbs and unleavened bread and lamb. All right, the Lord not dealing with you eating the Passover. You got all these different sides. Got the yams, the mac and cheese. All right, you start turning into a Negro. You start getting all the slave foods, getting oxtail with your lamb. No, that's off. All right, the Lord, he's very specific, and all these things have a double meaning to it. Most how I will, we can touch on it another day. Most likely I'm not going to be able to pull it right now. Nevertheless, reading on, verse 9, it says, eat not of it raw nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the puritance thereof. So also, if it's possible, you want to get a whole lamb. All right, and when you get a whole lamb, again, if it's possible, the Lord said you want to eat of it. You want to roast it whole, from the head to the legs to the puritans, meaning from the middle, the top, and the bottom. All right, you don't want to get your lamb, you breaking all the bones. All right, that's off. When you link it up with the precepts, Yahawashi was our Passover, and as he was getting crucified, none of his bones break. When you read the book of Psalms, all right, I believe that's the 69th chapter. I could be mistaken, right? Nevertheless, you also read that in Isaiah the 53rd chapter, how he was that lamb. All right, reading on, it says, verse number 10, and ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. Right, no leftovers. All right, namely, verse 11, going into the men, it says, and thus shall ye eat it with your loins girt, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Right, and you want to get a staff in this thing. All right, the Lord said, with your loins girt, you want to have a girdle as a man. Right, you want to have a staff. You want to prepare physically, spiritually as well, but physically you want to prepare for this thing. Get your mind ready, and get your spirit ready, and imagine what our mindset was, in the ancient world, getting ready for this Passover. All right, because again, during the time of Exodus, we didn't sleep that night when the Lord had brought the death angel past. That was a night of watching. We didn't go to sleep that night when you read the precepts. All right, let's go to Matthew 26. So that's the carnal part. You got your lamb, your unleavened bread, etc. But it also touches on the spirit of Yahawashi. Let's go to let's go to Isaiah 53 real quick. Isaiah chapter 53. And again, these is just the surface level, the basics of what you need to know for Passover. All right, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 53, and verse number, let me see when I want to start at. I'm trying to see where I want to start at. I'm going to start at verse 5. All right, Isaiah 53 and 5. It says, but he was wounded for our transgressions. Right, Isaiah 53 is going into a prophecy of the Lord, right, that you read about in the so-called New Testament as he steps on the scene and does his duties as a shepherd and as a blameless sheep. Right, it says, but he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. It says, we all like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. Right, verse 7, it says, he was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. It's the point. It says, he is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before the shears is he dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. So we just read in the law, in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, that the Lord, and we read Leviticus, the 2nd chapter, the Lord commands us to get a lamb without spot or blemish. Guess what? The Yahawashi, he's that lamb without spot or blemish on a spiritual level, because he was without guile and without sin. So also, as you're eating of this lamb and the bread, you also want to remember the afflictions that our King and our Lord Yahawashi went through. Right, again, verse 4. I'm gonna read verse 4. It says, surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. These things is what the Lord went through. He went through affliction, hell, turmoil, and through going through all this, at the end of the day, he was still perfect, spotless, and blameless. Right? Let's go to 1 Peter, chapter 1 and 19. So again, the Passover is twofold. It's really manyfold, but on the main fold, it's twofold levels. We got the Exodus, the 12th chapter, and you got Matthew, the 26th chapter, right? Linking up with the Gospels. It's the book of 1 Peter, chapter 1. Right, let me get that real quick. 1 Peter, chapter 1. and verse number 19. Right, 1 Peter 1 and 19, it says, but with the precious blood of Hamashiach, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. So again, the Lord, he's that lamb without blemish and without spot that the Lord has commanded us to eat of. All right, let me find this quick precept real quick. Exodus chapter, let me see. I'm going to get Exodus chapter 12 and verse 5. Right, again, going back into the Passover, Exodus 12 and 5. It says, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep and from the goats. So guess what? When you also eat your lamb, now we in captivity. You know, you can't do it 100% perfect. You know, you order a lamb, or, you know, you go into the store, buy some lamb. You don't know if that lamb had any spots or blemishes. Nevertheless, you know, through the Spirit, you got to keep it to the best of your ability. But getting back to the point, the lamb, namely, that you're supposed to have is supposed to be without spot and blemish. And that's what we had in the ancient world. We ate the lamb, and we had a lamb that was without spot and blemish that we chose from out the goats and out the sheep. And guess what we just read in 1 Peter chapter 1, right? And verse number 19. Yahawashi, he's that lamb without spot and without blemish. All right, now let's go to John chapter 6. All right, so we touched on how the Lord is that lamb. Let's go to John chapter 6 real quick. I'm trying to squeeze all this in a little bit of time. All right, nevertheless, again, this is just the basics on what you need to know about the Passover. All right, so along with the Passover, like how we read in Exodus 12, you got the unleavened bread as well. Right, Deuteronomy chapter 16, it's called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So with this thing, it also comes the bread. It's the book of John chapter 6 and verse number 30. I'm going to start at verse 30. This whole thing fire. I'm going to start at verse 31. It says, our fathers did eat manna in the desert. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Right? The Lord, he fed us with manna in the wilderness. When you read Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, when you read Exodus, I want to say, let me get a quick precept on that. Let's go to Exodus chapter, I want to say that's 16. All right, Exodus chapter 16. Right, where the Lord fed us with manna. Exodus 16 and verse number, let me find this real quick. I'm going to start at verse number, Salakia, bear with me. All right, Lord, when I find it, I'm going to read down, though. This is Exodus 16 and verse 3. And the children of Israel said unto them, would to God that we have died by the hand of the Lord and the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full, right? So now the children of Israel, they're getting on Moses. Why did you bring us into the wilderness? We could have stayed in Egypt, right? At least the Egyptians fed us, you know, just going off, murmuring. Verse 5, I'm jumping down to 5. It says, and it shall come to pass in the 6th day, they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather, right? It's like, I'm trying to find this point. Salakia. I'm going to jump down to verse number 13. And it came to pass at even, the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay down about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay small round things, as small as a hoar frost on the ground. Right, reading on verse 15. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, it is manna, for they was not what it was. So when we murmur in the wilderness against the Lord, guess what? The Lord, he fed us with manna, right? Angel's bread. All right, so he fed us with this mysterious bread that came down from the third heavens. And this is what the Lord in John chapter 6 is referring to. Real quick, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 8. I believe that's what I want. Deuteronomy chapter 8, right, and verse number 3. It says, "And he humbled thee, and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna." So the Lord in the wilderness, he fed us with manna, right? He fed us with a beautiful bread from the third heavens. And guess what? That tasted good to us when you read on in the book of Exodus chapter 16. All right? It was the best thing you ever tasted. Angel's bread, as they called it. Going back to John chapter 6. So this is what the Lord is referring to. Right? This is John chapter 6 and verse number 30 again. Verse 31. "Our fathers did eat manna in the desert. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Right? Like how we just ran into Deuteronomy 8:3 and Exodus, the 16th chapter. Verse 32. "Then Yahawashi said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven." So he's putting forth this parable, right? Moses, he didn't really give you that true bread from heaven, but my Father, he's giving you that true bread. It says, "For the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven, and giveth life unto the world." Then said they unto him, "Lord, evermore give us this bread." Right? So the Jews were carnal. Right? Israel was carnal. The Lord is telling them through the Spirit that he's the real bread, right, in the parable, yet they're not perceiving it. Verse 35. "Yahawashi said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst." So guess what? Also, when you eat at this Passover, the unleavened bread, which is also spiritual, right? You got to remember the Lord, how he's that true bread that came down from heaven, and how he put his life on the line for us, right? And as you're eating of the bread, you're remembering, what the Lord did for us. All right, you're remembering the Lord and how he laid down his life, him being that blameless lamb as he is. Let's go to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. And let's see what's the significance with the unleavened bread. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 5 and 7. Because why does the bread have to be unleavened? Right? On the physical level, leaven is something that causes the bread to rise. So as we were in Egypt, we had to hurry up and cook so fast that we couldn't wait till the bread rose. We kind of just had to hurry up, make it, unleavened, and got up out of there. We didn't have time for the bread to rise. On a spiritual level, leaven represents sin. This is the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6. It says, "Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump?" Meaning what? A little sin, on the spiritual level, a little sin can cause your whole body to fall. This is what Paul is telling the church of Corinth. Verse 7. It says, "Purge ye out therefore the old leaven." Meaning get rid of that old sin. Right? You read that in Hebrews 12 and 1 on down. Put away that sin that doth so easily beset you. Right? Paul said you got to put that away. Right? Passover is approaching. Put away your sins. Put away your leaven. Reading on. In verse 7. It says that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Hamashiach, Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. So guess what? The Lord, he became that lamb that got crucified and killed on Passover. He became that sacrifice for us. And through the Spirit, we have to be that, we have to appear before the Lord clean and blameless, unleavened, meaning without sin. All right, when we read, I want to say it's either 1st or 2nd Maccabees, the 12th chapter. You read about how Judas, when he went to war, certain men that died, they died because they had spiritual leaven. They had idols that was hid up within the camp. And because they had that leaven within them that was secretly hid, they got put to death. You read in Joshua chapter 7, how Achan, how he caused the whole camp to get destroyed because he had leaven. He had sin in him. All right? And again, you don't want to be that one person, you still got sin in you and you eat at a Passover, where you're supposed to be blameless and spotless. All right, let me get this last quick precept, and I'm going to close out through the Spirit. Let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 26. Right, again, this wasn't an in-depth breakdown, but this is just the milk on certain things that you should know about the Passover. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 26, and verse number 26. It says, "And as they were eating, Yahawashi took bread and blessed it and brake it, and gave it to the disciples and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.'" So when you're eating of the Passover, you're eating of the Lord's body. That's not you. That's not physically, you eating the skin of the Lord's right thigh or the skin of his back. It's meaning you're understanding what he went through. Right? You can link that up with Ezekiel chapter 2 and verse 9, and Ezekiel 3 and 1, how the Lord told Ezekiel to eat of the book, meaning gather the understanding. Right? Revelation chapter 10 and verse number 10, or chapter 10 verse 9 on down, how John had to eat of that roll, meaning eat of the understanding of it. All right? Same thing as we're eating at this Passover, you want to understand and be in the spirit on what the Lord was going through. We didn't know in verse 27. "And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, 'Drink ye all of it, for this is the blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many of remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.' And when he had sung a hymn, then he went out into the Mount of Olives." And with that, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to the Most High Yahweh, B'Shem Yahawashi. Again, that was a quick video, a milk, going into the things to know about the Passover, how your mind should be, what certain things is going into. And with that, I want to give, again, all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, B'Shem Yahawashi. Kwam Yashala, Shalom.